How can Batgirl be the best anything when Catwoman is around? No best-dressed list is complete without the addition of the Queen of Criminals, the Princess of Plunder, yours untruly.
C'est si bon de se dire des mots doux.
If a man came into your life, wouldn't you want to compromise?
Stupid. A man comes into my life and I have to compromise?
De petit rien de tout, mais qui en disent un long.
Hey friend, welcome to my channel karinealourde, where we deep dive and break down the most iconic stars in history. If you're not yet subscribed, please be sure to do so and turn your notifications on so you never miss an upload. Today we are talking about the iconic Miss Eartha Kitt. Ever since her appearance on Living Single when I was just a little teen, where she was trying to get Kyle to do favors for her, that's when I was first introduced to Miss Eartha Kitt.
Look, Miss Betty Davis and Pearl Bailey, Frank Sinatra.
Oh, the affairs this apartment has seen.
Who's the young guy in the matador suit?
Oh, the affairs this apartment has seen. What would you say to a glass of champagne?
Oh, I'm sorry. I never drink while I do business.
And I never do business without a drink.
And I also love her as Yzma in The Emperor's New Groove.
Screaming and yelling and getting angry. Still alive.
Well, it's not as dead as we would have hoped. Eartha Kitt brought such an eccentric quality to that character. She said, that she loves to play that sort of wild diva role.
Back to her. This act of highest treason has but one punishment. Death. God!
In Haiti and in many other Caribbean countries, especially where we speak French, we love listening to songs like C'est si bon. I never knew it was Miss Eartha Kitt until I got older, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's her.
C'est si bon de se dire des mots doux.
And did you guys know she is the one that originally sung Santa Baby?
Santa honey, a 54 convertible to light blue Santa baby, and hurry down the chimney tonight.
What sensual appeal. Orson Welles once pronounced her the most exciting woman in the world, and I believe she is. Her lithe feline movements, she moves like a cat. She reminds me of a cat, and she did play Catwoman also. She has these big, sensual, wide-set eyes and coquettishly gruff singing voice. The songs Just an Old-Fashioned Girl, Santa Baby, and I Want to Be Evil portrayed her as a gold digger in the beginning of her career, but her other songs showed her versatility, including Johnny, Dinner for One Please, James, and The Day That the Circus Left Town. She was already being referred to as the sex kitten, but insisted, I don't sing naughty songs. Innocence is one of the most exciting things in the world. When I sing something like I Want to Be Evil, I'm not trying to indicate an adult evil. It's a little girl mischief, like going out and throwing stones at windows. I have a great need for affection from an audience, she said. I don't know whether this is because I had such a tough life when I was a child, and as we will see in this video, she really did. Eartha was never shy about her love for men and sensuality. When asked to define her sensual appeal, she replied, in the old days, they called it it. It's something you're born with. There's nothing you can do about it. I play with my sensuality because of who I am. I love teasing men. We don't have much of the teasing factor anymore because of feminism. God, it drives me nuts. Men don't flirt with us anymore. They don't tease us because it's called harassment. I used to love it when I walked down the streets and construction workers would whistle. End quote. How do you guys feel about that quote? She is very outspoken, but we love her for that, right? She also worked in film, theater, and television, playing Catwoman and Batman. And in an interview with the New York Post, Kitt spoke about her diet in regards to her diet. I avoid processed foods and pretty much anything out of the box. I don't eat junk food because I believe that junk food creates junk minds. I've never had a sweet tooth except years ago for Snickers bars. I did like Snickers bars with all those peanuts, but in general, I try to eat very fresh food. I was born in the South on a plantation and we had to eat the food that was around us, so I still grow my own food. I grow vegetables and berries and herbs, lots of tomatoes in my garden in Beverly Hills. I use a lot of olive oil when I cook. I use it to saute vegetables and garlic. For me, growing herbs and vegetables is a very spiritual thing, and that was one of her favorite hobbies, was to grow her own food. As far as exercise goes, she stated also to the New York Post, "Walking for me is the best thing in the world. I do it with weights around my ankles, usually up to 5 pounds. I like to go for a walk in Central Park." As far as her beauty secrets, she told the New York Post that, "I believe it's not what you put on your face, it's what you put in your face." That said, I try to keep my skin as clean as possible. I clean my face with olive oil, which has always worked for me. I use fresh lemon juice as an astringent, and if I have a small zit, I take a piece of fresh garlic and rest it there. It pulls out the poison. I always told my daughter, "Why do you go to a dermatologist? All you need is garlic." But children, they don't listen to their mother. Until the day that she went to see a doctor and he said, "Why don't you just use garlic?" And I will testify with garlic for myself. Anytime I have a huge pimple and I need it gone ASAP, I would rest it on it. And Miss Eartha Kitt looked young until the very day she died. She was very youthful for her age. Her body was still very toned. She was a dancer also, and she had very toned body. She would contort herself in a way most people can't really contort their bodies, so she stayed pretty fit, up until the very end. We're going to get into her childhood, her marvelous career, and some of the controversy, which she kind of made the CIA look pretty bad now, especially in recent times. She kind of exposed them, We'll get into that also. As far as her childhood, she had a pretty tough one. Eartha was born on a cotton estate near North South Carolina in 1927. Her mother was Cherokee and African, and Kitt had little awareness of who her father was, but she reportedly was conceived via RAPE, like her mom was taken advantage of by one of the masters. So in a 2013 book, British journalist John Williams said that Kitt's father was a white doctor named Daniel Sturkey. Kitt's daughter, Kit McDonald Shapiro, doesn't believe it though. She does doubt that. And Eartha's mother soon went to live with a black man who refused to adopt Eartha because of her light skin. When she was younger, she had very, very light skin. So he didn't want anything to do with her because at that time there was still a hate. So her mom essentially gave her up, and we will see that this really damaged her a lot. She was raised by her Aunt Rosa, who mistreated her terribly. Her daughter wrote a book highlighting her mother's life. Her daughter, they were like really, really close, and her daughter was literally the love of Eartha's life. She loved her daughter a lot. Her daughter loved her a lot. They were almost obsessed with each other. And it's just such a cute relationship where they devoted themselves to each other. So she really honored her very beautifully in this book. But in the book, she also had this to say about Eartha Kitt's upbringing. She said, "My mother was called a yellow gal, and in the part of South Carolina that she was born in, she was too light-skinned for, everybody else. It was presumed that her biological father was probably a white man, but I think she struggled her entire life with the fact that her mother gave her up, and my mother was given to a family who treated her horribly. The mother, as well as the teenage children, physically took advantage of her, sensually took advantage of her, emotionally took advantage of her, if you guys catch my drift, and these were scars she carried her entire life, yet she didn't hide them. She was always willing to talk about it. She didn't want to forget those tough times because they kept her very honest and very real." End quote.
There's the two sides of Eartha Kitt, if I say, from the book it seems. Very vulnerable, innocent young girl who was abused, as you say, and rejected. And then there is the extrovert. When does one character stop and the other take over?
And when I catch myself realizing that I have reverted back into being Eartha May, I have
this is Eartha May, which is what your name was when you were very poor, and your mother actually passed you on to somebody else.
Yes, she gave me away to a family. My mother gave me to this family because the man that she wanted to marry said, "I don't want that yellow gal in my house. You are not wanted by the blacks, and the whites couldn't care less." So this black family, and the young boy, he was not the nicest kid in the world, and neither was his sister, who also... I didn't know anything about lesbians in those days. She too tried.
How old were you then?
I know people don't believe it when I say I don't know how old I am, but I know somewhere I'm way past 60. But really still about 5-6 years old.
And all that abuse going on.
Yes. And all of that abuse was going on, and I couldn't tell anybody about it because who would have believed me? And there were times when the whole family was gone into the fields or something like that, harvesting, picking cotton or whatever they were doing, and we were left in the house alone. The two teenagers would tie the sack around my waist and then tie me to a tree. And with a peach tree switch, they would beat my bottom until I was bleeding. And I only had one thing to wear, and that was also made of potato sacking. And the idea of them tying me to a tree and you're not able to escape at all, even though the physical scars are gone. And you start talking about it like we are talking about it now, and you try to not get emotional about it, but all of a sudden those feelings do come back.
your mother's sister who looked after you then in New York. Isn't that right? You went to New York to your mother's sister, Auntie Mamie?
Yeah, my aunt was very, very strict. I was deathly afraid of her, even from the sight. When I first saw her, I was terribly afraid of her. But she had no children of her own. She was never married. She brought me up north to New York out of Christian duty, because she got a letter from the South that told her that if I was not taken away from this family, that they would either starve me to death or beat me to death or work me to death. She decided that she would take me on into New York. I don't think I was running away from life. I was running away from rejection. I was running away from not being accepted.
So you're an extrovert, that you're looking for attention, you're looking for affection.
But Mr. Bogan, you know something? I'm not an extrovert. I can tease as Eartha Kitt, but as Eartha may forget it.
Eartha herself had this to say about her own beauty due to her tumultuous childhood. She said, "I've never been confident about my looks. Eartha Kitt can accept she's beautiful on stage, but not when she's off stage, because when I was a child, no one wanted me. You're an illegitimate child. You're not the right color. I'm still hiding in many ways. It's something for me to realize that I am a privileged child, because look at what the public gave me. The privilege of being somebody." So she was always grateful for the privilege of fame and becoming who she was, but she also had to battle with the self-esteem issues that erupted from, her tumultuous childhood. Eartha was taken to live with Mammy Kitt after Annie Mae's death. She attended Metropolitan Vocational High School in Harlem. Now, as far as her career goes, so one fortunate day changed her life forever. A woman who asked Eartha for directions in New York saw her and started talking to her about how she danced with Katherine Dunham, and also recommended her to audition also. The outcome was a dance scholarship and tour with Dunham's troupe. Still a teen, she performed in Europe, Mexico, and South America, and made her screen debut in Cashapp. So Kitt joined Katherine Dunham Company in 1943 and stayed until 1948. She recorded Let's Do It, Champagne Taste, C'est Si Bon, Just an Old-Fashioned Girl, Je Cherche un Homme, Love for Sale, I'd Rather Be Burned as a Witch, Under the Bridges of Paris, and Santa Baby in 1953. She had hits. Kitt's particular style was boosted by learning French in Europe, so she spoke French fluently. She spoke 4 languages, actually, and sang in 11 in live cabaret recordings. Yes, she sung in 11 languages, and she even had popular songs in Sweden. She is rumored to have learned German and Dutch from her stepfather, English from her mother, and French in Europe cabarets. Diana Ross based her look and voice as a supreme off of Kitt's, so she was an influencer before her time, okay? In 1950s, Kitt performed a solo act at a Carol's lesbian nightclub. So Kitt stayed for 11 months, and that's where Orson Welles saw her and cast her as Helen of Troy. So in case you don't know who Orson Welles is, he was probably one of the world's most exciting men also. And he was very ahead of his time as far as when it came to race and all of those things. He wasn't one of those people that wouldn't give African-American women and men opportunities. So he was very above his time, ahead of his time in ideology. And he was one of the most exciting men, like I said. So George Orson Welles, best known as Orson Welles, was an American filmmaker, actor, theater director, screenwriter, and producer who works extensively in film, theater, television, and radio. He is best known for War of the Worlds. He was a big deal. Let's just say that. He was a big deal, and if he was linked to anyone, it was a big deal. So in a 2001 interview with George Wayne of Vanity Fair, Kitt denied Welles and her having an affair during Shinbone Alley because so many people was like they were always together. They were so comfy together. They must be together. But she always denied it. Kitt told Vanity Fair, "I never had sensual relations with Orson Welles." Her daughter also wrote about Welles in her book about her mother, saying she was close to Orson Welles and she was like a sponge around him because she was so drawn to his intensity and his incredible knowledge of many different subjects. End quote. People often thought they were lovers, but she said they never were. It was more of a mentorship. Eartha Kitt also said this about Orson Welles. After rehearsing all night, Orson would walk me up the Champs-Élysées to my hotel with the sun coming up. We would look at the sights, window shop, and he would recite Shakespeare to me. Kitt recalled the fabulous lunches Welles would buy her. Orson really introduced me to a marvelous gourmet type of living. Him and Ruby Rosa, which was this millionaire that she had an affair with also. And she had this to say, "I tell you, I was absolutely spoiled by the best kind of men."
A man has always wanted to lay me down, but he never wanted to pick me up. And the men that did have real love and affection for me were the ones that never touched me. It was Orson Welles' Ruby Rosa.
What an incredible compliment, and yet what a burden to be labeled as the most exciting woman on earth by Orson Welles at the very beginning of your career. How did you react to that?
I believed everything he said.
So Kitt's record in Swedish, and it was a small hit in Sweden in 1956. She returned to the Broadway stage in Miss Patterson, in the short-lived Jolly's Progress, and she worked in film, television, and nightclubs in 1959. Kitt played Catwoman. She played a contortionist in The Traitor. So Kitt's career suffered in 1968 after she made anti-war remarks at a White House luncheon, and this is pretty tragic, and I want you guys to pay attention so you can comment your thoughts below. So in 1968, she interrupted Lady Bird Johnson's, which was, the president's wife. She interrupted her speech at a White House luncheon to protest the Vietnam War, and she said this in very much full passion. I am a mother, and I know the feeling of having a baby come out of my gut. I have a baby, and then you send him off to war? No wonder the kids rebel and take pot. During a time when people could ask questions, Kitt said, the children of America are not rebelling for no reason. They're not hippies for no reason at all, because, being a hippie around that time was attached to people that didn't want to go to war. She said, we don't have what we have on Sunset Boulevard for no reason. They are rebelling against something. There are so many things burning the people of this country, particularly mothers. They feel they are going to raise sons, and I know what it's like, and you have children of your own, Miss Johnson. We raise children and send them to war, end quote. I didn't find anything wrong with what she said, but her words apparently made Miss Johnson cry.
It was apparently an embarrassing moment for Mrs. Johnson. Do you have any regrets about that?
No, I don't have any regrets about it at all. Why should I be upset by the fact that she was embarrassed? That's her problem.
And after that, the CIA just went after her, okay? Kitt's career in the U.S. ended after her statements criticizing the war, and they labeled her, the CIA started labeling her as a sadistic nymphomaniac. Seymour Hersh found a CIA report defaming Kitt in 1975. The New York Times published Hersh's dossier story. The report featured derogatory comments about Kitt's sensual life, family, and past colleagues. She was depicted in the CIA document as having a very nasty disposition and as being a spoiled child, very crude, and having a vile tongue. Miss Kitt, who is Black, was said not to associate with other Negroes and often bragged that she had a very little Negro blood, end quote. And a lot of Black people at that time fell for it, unfortunately, because the CIA, come on, they knew how to, we didn't have social media, all of this knowledge not to know not to fall for this nonsense. If they did that, all this defamation and stuff, they went for it. And it really did ruin her career because they stopped supporting her and started seeing her as this person for real, because she had the daughter who is white passing. Her daughter's white passing, and they saw that as, and her attachment to the white men, and she had white friends that were women also, but she was also very active in the civil rights movements, just like the Pearl Baileys and the Lena Hornes also. So it was so unfortunate. But Eartha's remark was, when she found all of this out, was, I'm confused. It's vile. So she later toured Europe and Asia. The entertainer said the Times could publish as much of the CIA report as it saw fit, adding, I've always lived a very clean life and I have nothing to be afraid of and I have nothing to hide. So she didn't care what they published. So it's just like, go ahead, do what you got to do. But she kind of saw what it was, and powerful people in the entertainment industry also saw what it was and supported her low-key. And a lot of the hippies did support her too and saw what it was. But there was a lot of people that, of course, fell for the defamation, as in today's time with a lot of people that, they decide to defame.
It took until 1975 for me to get this dossier, because I didn't even know it until 1975 that I was suddenly cut off from the American public.
Yes, your career took a conspicuous nosedive at that point. Right?
The dossier says that 2 hours after the luncheon, President Johnson picked up the telephone and called across the nation networks and said, I do not want to see that woman on the air.
Do you think that's true?
It's what's on the dossier.
Yeah.
And this is CIA and FBI. And when this man walked in, Dick, he went over to the rostrum, put his elbow on the rostrum and said, I want you all to know how wonderful it is for the first family to invite the common people to have lunch with us.
I had a chance to see some of the material that was in your dossier, but I invited you here anyway, even though you are a sadistic nymphomaniac. And the fact that you're shallow, I thought to be both a sadistic nymphomaniac and shallow at the same time takes a great deal of skill, because they managed to find an informant conveniently who was willing to say some bad things about you. It would have been incredible for you to do the things you did and also perform at night.
I think it's also
really is
unfair
quite
for the
startling.
CIA to be spending American tax money to find riffraff about us personally that
Yes,
has nothing to do with being subversive. Me? On a CIA dossier? How could that possibly be? And he said, we have found a list of you on this dossier, and he was reading it to me. They were interviewing people, the CIA that is, were interviewing people that I had worked with from time to time in a show or the other. But that's what they did. They went from people to people whom you have worked with. No matter how many people they talk to, somebody is going to say something negative and derogatory about you. And I realized, too, that my house was being bugged. And I would call up my friend Albert Popwell and I'd say, this phone sounds very funny. Are you playing tricks on me, Poppy? And he'd say, oh, Kit, you're on one of your voodoo trips again. You can always feel when some foreign spirit has entered your space, so to speak.
Eartha Kitt's childhood really played a major role in her spiritual beliefs and her religious beliefs as well. Because she was a very light-skinned, what she was labeled as was a yellow gal. Because at the time, though right now, you would obviously see her as a black woman with black features. During that era, people were a lot darker. So she was considered lighter skinned, especially in the area that she was in. And when she was young, as you could see from her childhood photo, the one that I could find, she was a pretty fair young lady. So she got a lot of criticism, but this is why. There was a lot of superstition surrounded around light-skinned yellow women or mulattoes, right? Mixed children. Because of her light skin, Kitt was called a yellow gal in her youth. And according to a profile of Kitt in the Gramblinite, there was a superstition at the time that girls with mixed heritage were the cause of bad weather and bad luck. This made her feel unloved by her family and is linked to the abuse she suffered. So that did explain why when her mother was trying to get married, the man was like, no, I don't want this girl in my house. Nobody wanted her around. That does kind of explain the superstition. Well, why a lot, because Eartha Kitt's story is not unique to a lot of the women that I did break down for that were of mixed heritage, where the black slaves at the time or the black community at the time rejected them a lot because they thought they were bad luck or brought bad attention. And it's very unfortunate because, I mean, they didn't ask to be born and they were already born under terrible circumstances. But also the women did not want these reminders of basically how these mixed children came to be, because 90% of these mixed children did not come as a product of love. It came as a product of brutality. Like, it was forced. They were forced to lay down with whether the slave owners or the slave owners' kids or house guests or whatever. So it was just a dark reminder. And oftentimes these women that would be forced to sleep with the slave owners were married on the plantation with black husbands. And the black husbands would, because, you lose your sense of control. You watching your wife be pregnant for another man's child, and you're watching your wife get brutalized like that every night, being taken, and you got to be with them because they still got married in secret, like jumping the broom, etc. Well, the slave owners did not necessarily know, but they had to, for many of them, be in love or married in secret, right? So in being in love and married in secret, you can't just, you had no choice. I can't even imagine the psychology of that. That is insane. And Eartha Kitt lived in a time, Eartha Kitt didn't die that long ago. She did not die that long ago. So this was not that long ago. And she lived through a generation witnessing her peoples pick up cotton.
How far back can you trace your family?
I don't have a family. I'm an orphan, so I know nothing about my blood relations. But I am one of the children of the cotton plantation owner's sons who took advantage of my mother. This particular one boy of that family, he was the one that was always throwing me food, nuts, or whatever was prevalent at the moment. He was throwing me food, yes.
You throw food at an animal, you don't throw food at a person.
Well, we were treated like animals. What else were you treated like when I was a kid in the South? Being born on a cotton plantation in the South was not very easy, because I remember times when we didn't have anything to eat for what seemed like an unsurmountable amount of time, and we had to rely on the forest and whatever we could dig out of the ground, a kind of grass, I remember, that had a kind of onion growing at the bottom of it.
Like, this was not that long ago. I can't understand the psychology of the brutality. It's sickening to understand, but these men would be upset because they couldn't protect or defend their wives or their daughters or sisters or whatever, whoever was on the plantation. And so it would breed contempt and bitterness towards the women. And then the product of the child that comes out now doesn't get the love that they deserve. And it's just a cycle of mentally that they're still paying for today. There are people that are still a product generationally of that type of brutality and trauma, okay, still today. And it even plays a role in how these parents discipline their children, giving them up, letting them be orphans, or being into substances and all of that stuff. It just played a very big number mentality. And so that superstition of you being bad luck was further fueling, like throwing gasoline to being light-skinned. So, of course, she came from a very superstitious part of, in the Carolinas, it was very superstitious. So she started to blend Christianity, like the belief of God, with superstition and voodoo growing up. And as she got older, like she stated, she believes in karma, she believes in fate and destiny. She was into Greek mythology and believed in all the Greek gods and the Roman gods. And she was like a pantheist. Like she believed in the unity of all gods. And she said her mind is like a sponge. She didn't think linear, so she incorporated all religions and all faiths and all the deities to kind of be one. So she was all over the place.
And this shows you how fate works and has always worked with me. And I do believe in faith and karma, and always keep the mind open to thinking and not be so dogmatically into one line of thought. My mind is like a sponge, and I, myself, am like a sponge. Even the things that you don't think I see, I may not see it, but I sure in hell feel it.
Now, she was into the mystical as well. She was very mystical and would often be called a witch. And it was like a, well, not so well-kept secret in Hollywood that she was always on a voodoo trip. That's what they'll call her, voodoo trip. Meaning she practiced voodoo a lot and she'd be in trances, whether substance that would take her there. But she did a song titled, I'd Rather Be Burned as a Witch. She didn't run from the allegations of being a witch before anyone's in the comments like, da-da-da. She didn't run from those allegations. In fact, she made a song. I'm not going to play the song for you guys because absolutely not. But I'll read the lyrics for you guys, okay? She says, they say that I'm a witch and that I weave a spell. Well, I use my eyes to invite you, my lips to delight you, and all the charms of the feminine wills to excite you. They say that I'm a witch and that I weave a spell. Well, I'll be a son of a... I don't know what. Well, let me tell you, brother, I'd rather be burned as a witch than never be burned at all. I use my songs to entice you, with curses advise you, and all of my bags of tricks to choose and rise you. You want a gal who will be your pal, who will never look at another, who would be good and true and take care of you? Sorry, you want another. I use my charms to undo you, my arms to unglue you, and all of the hex of the weaker sex to voodoo you. If you want a love who's a turtle dove, who will bring you life's little joys, who is sweet and shy with a gentle eye, I'll take them in with the boys. I use my eyes to invite you, my lips to delight you, and you never can tell when I use my teeth to bite you. Yes, they say that I'm a witch and that I weave a spell. Well, I'll be a son of a, I don't know what. Well, let me tell you, brother, I'd rather be burned as a witch than never be burned at all. That's the end of the song. So, like we stated, she would go on voodoo trips, and Eartha Kitt recorded a song called Voodoo Woman, which was featured on her 1974 album, The Old Fashioned Way. The song reflects her like unique style and is one of her many notable recordings, which also included, like that album included her famous hits of C'est Si Bon and Santa Baby. So she did not run from the allegations, and she would often make songs and in interviews hint at it, you know, so she embraced the allegations. Now, the phrase voodoo trips refers to Eartha Kitt's perception of strange spiritual premonitions, and it was also used by others to dismiss her concerns as well. Kitt's strong belief in spiritual phenomena stemmed from her traumatic childhood, as stated, which included witnessing the mysterious death of her mother. So James Dean's death, she predicted, okay? This is why in Hollywood it was like not a so well-kept secret that she just had premonitions and could predict people's death, etc. Right? Shortly before James Dean's fatal car crash, Kitt was plagued by disturbing premonitions. During a hug, she told Dean, I can't feel you. Your spirit is gone. When she later saw his new Porsche Spider, she told him, "Jamie, I don't like this car. It's going to kill you." Dean laughed off her warnings, telling her, "You're on one of your voodoo trips again." End quote. Her mother's death, as we stated, when Kitt was around 7, she witnessed her mother's death. She was convinced her mother was poisoned and that it was a voodoo act. The family performed a ceremony where a baby was passed over the body, which Kitt interpreted as an indication the death was not natural. This event heavily influenced her lifelong beliefs in spiritual and supernatural phenomena. So what this is I guess, in some remote parts of Haiti, they do that as well. Is like if the mother, was dead, like taken away from her child by dying of unnatural causes, like somebody poisoned them or whatever the case, murdered them, then the mom can come back in the afterlife and end the life of her youngest child. So if she ends the life of her youngest child to avenge her death, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
The superstition goes, the mother is taken away from the child against her will. That means she didn't die of natural causes. She had to pass the youngest child over the grave several times in order for my mother not to come back and take her youngest child. I stood by that grave side and I saw this ritual. And they passed my sister over that grave several times. It would not have been necessary if my mother had died of natural causes. The gods have paid me back 1,000-fold for all of that, what I've gone through. There must have been a reason for you to have gone through certain things, because destiny, I guess she's already formed that pathway for you, because I want you to be aware of the fact that the gods have given you something special. It's very costly.
Trying to disrespect any religion. I mean, I was around this stuff too. I grew up around this stuff, but yeah, the practice does not make sense to me. But so in order to prevent the mother from being able to come back and take the life of her youngest baby, they would take the youngest child, and pass the child over the grave several times as like an offering, to kind of appease the mother that was murdered. And it's just like, it don't make sense. You're a mother, you love your child, why come back and try to end your child's life? But oftentimes when a mother was murdered, oftentimes they would say, if you're in that life, the youngest baby would be taken out too. So they just tried to prevent that. I mean, comment below your thoughts on that. But yeah, I'm sure you guys can put comments in the store of people that were murdered and their youngest babies are thriving right now and still living. So you don't have to do those things. But that was a superstition, especially during that time in the South, where they wanted to just appease whatever spirits to prevent them from coming to take that baby as a sacrifice. Now, with the CIA investigations during the period she was blacklisted from working in the United States after speaking out against the Vietnam War, Kitt recalled feeling her house was being disturbed. She recalled a friend on the phone saying, "Kitty, you're on one of your voodoo trips again," after she mentioned hearing strange noises. And she stated that she felt like people were astral projecting into her house. And we know in the White House and politics, it's a lot of warlocks and wizards and very high occult masons. In my Mental Gems channel, we talked about how the presidents use a lot of mysticism, prime ministers, dictators, how they would have workers of darkness living, to make decisions to run the country, basically. So Eartha Kitt spoke about it. She was like, yeah, when Lady Bird, she really strongly believed that Lady Bird had people astral projecting into her home, and she felt the different foreign presence, as she quote.
And I realized too that my house was being bugged. And I would call up my friend Albert Popwell and I'd say, "This phone sounds very funny. Are you playing tricks on me, Poppy?" And he'd say, "Oh, Kit, you're on one of your voodoo trips again." You can always feel when some foreign spirit has entered your space, so to speak.
Yeah, so she would feel foreign presences in her space, and she's like, yeah, there's spirits in here that don't belong. And she could kind of tell that she upset some powerful people, and I think that's one of the reasons why she just moved abroad as well, to just kind of protect herself from those type of people and that lifestyle. But when she would talk about it to people again, they just think she's on a voodoo trip, because when she was on a voodoo trip, she would act up crazy. Now, the last thing I'll say in regards to that is when she does pass away, we're going to talk about that later in the video, she was screaming. She went out screaming, okay? Not pleasantly, you would say. And she was starting to see people that wasn't there, like dead people and stuff. And they just kind of dismissed it. But being that she was in that life, it kind of makes sense because usually I'll just share that with you guys, and you guys can comment below your own thoughts respectfully, of course, but respectfully from the experience of what, many people that are from the Caribbean would tell you is that when someone is passing that was deeply into that lifestyle or the occult, they're tortured. They're tortured. Oftentimes they start to see things that are not their spirits. They're screaming, they're in pain. It's like a battle for the mind that's going on. And so that's pretty interesting how her daughter shared it, but her daughter just kind of like accepted it and was just like, she would walk out and just give her mom time to speak to the people that were there that she couldn't see. It was like, I'll leave you to talk to your friends, and her mom would literally sit there and speak to these spirits, so it's very interesting with Eartha Kitt nonetheless. But hey, I think trauma definitely played a role from that, but then her family also mixing Christianity, because her aunt took her in based trying to be a good Christian, but you can kind of tell too, they had their own trauma, and the way they treated her and abused her and hurt her, you could tell, y'all definitely wasn't all the way locked in for real. So there's a mixture there for sure, for certain. But of course, one reason why I'm not making an excuse for or like giving a pass, but I always understand people from that generation when I do documentaries on them that were picking cotton and enslaved or endured a lot of extreme prejudice, why they went into mysticism and occult, because they felt like they had no control over their lives. And that's what that kind of promise to give you, is some form of control. They want to control at least some circumstances. A lot of them were practicing that to kind of like feel like they can somewhat protect themselves or to try to avenge themselves against their white slave owners, and a lot of times these white slave owners too would tap into that as well to protect themselves from their black slaves. So it was like a cycle of mixture, it was a mixture. So a lot of the biggest plantation owners and the richest plantation owners that had cotton gins and all that, of course they knew a lot would spiritually come against them. So they would be in that too to protect themselves from that. And it was just a mess. It's a really dark hole to explore. I do understand the psychology of it and how it would be very prevalent during that time. But nonetheless, let's move on from this topic. So in the 1970s, Kitt starred on BBC's long-running variety show, The Good Old Days. Kitt returned to New York in 1978 to star in Timbuktu, an African-set version of Kismet. So in the musical, one song gives a recipe for mahoun, which is a way to make, cannabis, marijuana. For her performance, she was nominated for a Tony Award, and in the late 1990s, she played the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz on tour. Kitt performed as the fairy godmother in the Cinderella National Tour in 2000. She replaced Cheetah Rivera in 9. Kitt repeated her role as the fairy godmother in 2004 at Lincoln Center. She played Ka in a 1994 BBC radio rendition of The Jungle Book. She voiced Bagheera in The Jungle Book, Mowgli's Story. Kitt gave her voice to Yzma in The Emperor's New Groove, for which she starred her first Annie Award, and repeated her character in Kronk's New Groove in The Emperor's New School, for which she won 2 Emmy Awards and 2 Annie Awards in 2007 and 2008. She voiced Vexus in My Life as a Teenage Robot. In 2003, Kitt played Madame Zeroni, but it's based on a book by Louis Sachar in August 2007, and she did a phenomenal job as Madame Zeroni. Kitt later performed at the Ballroom and Cafe Carlyle in New York City. Now, as far as her relationships, after relationships with cosmetic tycoon Charles Revson and banking heir John Barry Ryan III, she married John William MacDonald on June 6, 1960. Their daughter Kitt MacDonald was born November 26, 1961. So MacDonald became addicted, the father. He became addicted to, substances after suffering war injuries from a grenade explosion. This, along with Eartha Kitt's work trips, strained their marriage. So Eartha filed for divorce in July 1963, citing mental cruelty and requesting child support. MacDonald was ordered to pay $100 a month in child support after she won in 1964. As far as her charity, she was really big into charity, and I didn't even list all of it into this video just to not make it too long. But in the 1950s and 1960s, she supported many causes. She founded the Kidsville Youth Foundation in Los Angeles in 1966. Kitt was a part of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. Her 1968 criticism of the Vietnam War was part of a greater commitment to peace activity. Kitt was under CIA surveillance for it, so, Kitt later endorsed same-sex marriage, which she deemed a civil right. She was reported to have said, "I'm for gay marriage because we both want the same thing. By we both, it means also African Americans. If I had a partner and something happens to me, I want my partner to harvest what we've sown. It's civil rights, right?" Kitt famously performed at LGBT fundraisers, including one with George Burns and Jimmy James, Atlantic Entertainment Group. And Scott Sherman said, "Eartha Kitt is amazing. She supports LGBT civil rights." And in 1992, Kitt said, "We're all rejected people. We know what it is to be refused. We know what it is to be oppressed, depressed, and then accused. And I am very much cognizant of that feeling. Nothing in the world is more painful than rejection. I am a rejected, oppressed person. And so I understand them as best as I can, even though I am a heterosexual." Now, as far as her death, it was pretty tragic her last days, but I'm glad she had her daughter with her. I just loved their relationships. So cute. So she passed away of colon cancer on Christmas Day in 2008, 3 weeks before her 82nd birthday. Kitt McDonald did detail her mother's last days, and she said, "I was with her when she passed. She left this world literally screaming at the top of her lungs. I was with her constantly. She lived not even 3 miles from my house. We were together practically every day. She was home for the last few weeks when the doctor told us there was nothing they could do anymore. Up until the last 2 days, she was still moving around. The doctor told us she will leave very quickly and her body will just start to shut down. But when she left the world with a bang. She left it how she lived it. She screamed her way out of here, literally. I truly believe her survival instincts were so part of her DNA that she was not going to go quietly or willingly. It was just the two of us hanging out during the last days. She was very funny. We didn't have to talk because I always knew how she felt about me. I was the love of her life, so the last part of her life, we didn't have to have these heart-to-heart talks. She started to see people that weren't there. She thought I could see them too, but of course I couldn't. I would make fun of her like, I'm going to go in the other room and you stay here and talk to your friends, end quote. Oh, it's so sad to see a parent, passed away like that. But may she rest in peace. She lived such a enigmatic life. She always spoke for what she believed in. I love when she guest starred in the 90s shows. And also, she was never shy to do the animation voice work. She had such a distinctive voice. You could recognize her voice anywhere. I love how she purred and she's so dramatic when she spoke. She just really had this flair, this it factor that is so hard to replicate in today's time. And wow, what a woman, what a career. Comment below what else you guys would like to see. If you like the music you're listening to, link is in the description. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification bell. I love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.